Hello and welcome back to the How to Succeed podcast. This is How to Succeed at Social Media. Ooh, everybody needs to know that these days. I'm your host, Mike Montague at Sandler. I am the Director of Community Engagement, and my guest this week is Shaily Hakimian. I almost got there. Your social media Sherpa. You can find her at yoursocialmediasherpa.com. Really easy to find. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. Give us a like, thumbs up, share it with somebody that you think needs to hear it. We're helping you get to the top and stay there. The show is brought to you by Sandler, the worldwide leader in sales management and customer service training with over 200 locations. More information on Sandler at sandler.com. All right, Shaily, we are talking about how to succeed at social media. Feels like a big, meaty question this time, but I'll start with, where is social media these days? Because I think a lot of people still think that you can kind of jump on, you can go viral, build this huge audience, and you make a post and somebody buys from you. But I think that was a little, maybe 15 years ago. Now, not so much.
You got to be good for that to happen.
Yeah.
You got to be really good for that to happen. Sorry, I interrupted you, but I was like, there's more to that. And there's a lot more ways you can control it than all of the people that have given you that message have been saying, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump in on this and say that the easiest thing that I know we have a lot of salespeople listening to this is that usually you don't get a chance to really explain how awesome the thing is that you're selling is to the person. And you don't have like 3 hours to get on a phone call. These people are probably experts. They know from Sandler that like you shouldn't sit on the phone for 3 hours trying to explain the world. But the magic of social media for a lot of these people is how do you get the questions for your demographic answered before they even get on the phone so that you can fast forward the relationship that you're going to be building with them. I know that you've talked about this on other shows, but that is the magic of using social media to really save you time in the relationship building process. So I'm going to start with that.
I love that. And I think there's so much to unpack here. So we've already hit one of the misconceptions. What do you feel like are maybe some others where people get this wrong? What should people stop doing, or what attitudes and beliefs don't work on social media?
Ooh, what things don't work? Ooh, yeah, none of us like the scary people that just add you on places like LinkedIn and then they try to like, what do they call it? Pitch slap?
Oh, you right away? Yeah, pitch slapped is my favorite word. Yeah.
It's so crazy, right? None of us, we don't like that. I don't think that's what you guys are teaching. But what can be helpful is if you can, look, going viral, going on the internet, like that's not really the move here, especially if your people don't have time for this stuff, right? Everyone's busy. They've got things to do. But if you can, let's say a prospect can see, like I looked you up on LinkedIn, I found out how much we have in common. I found out how many friends we know in common. Like my trust level for you was like through the roof before other people that I've met and done podcasts with, right? And the same thing can go for the people listening to this. Is if the person that's reading this is your ideal human and you can show them that you can solve their problem, great. I know some people are like, there's 100 people at your company, I think you told me earlier, that might be doing the same job, right? We don't need 100 influencers doing the same thing. Actually, that probably wouldn't even work. But every person's probably feeding a different demographic of a client base, right? Somebody might be selling insurance to a big company or a smaller company or companies that have a certain demographic or whatnot. So if you can really speak to a very specific human that you serve, even though you have competitors or peers that are doing the same thing, that will make it so much easier for someone's light bulb to go off and be like, you're the person I need to talk to solve whatever XYZ big problem your company solves.
I love that. For me, a few words come to mind, buzzwords mostly, like personal branding. I think you want to make sure you're not looking for a job, right? Nobody wants to buy from a salesperson that they think is actively pursuing another career that they can't make it in this one and stuff. So sometimes on LinkedIn and stuff, people try to put up their professional resume, but they forget they need to actually look like they love the job they're currently in. They're an expert at it, and they can solve your questions if you reach out to them. And then people know what to call you for because of that branding around, oh, I know Shaily, she's the social media lady. She's who I need to reach out to when I need help with social media. And I just automatically go to yoursocialmediasherpa.com. See how I work in the plugs there too. So tell us a little bit about that. A few things.
Oh, I have a yes and for all of that.
How do we make sure we have our attitude and our profiles and everything set up so that we're speaking to the right people, like you said, with the right message?
You said so many good things here. You said something about like your LinkedIn isn't just a resume of like, here's what I've done. I worked here. I worked there. I know things about this. I know things about that. I don't care if I'm your ideal client. I don't care what you've done. I mean, maybe it's cool if you worked at a cool company, like you work at a really cool company. But what I do care about is like, what's in it for me? And that was a huge mindset shift that took me kind of years to understand. Actually, I was just talking about Jonathan Pritchard. Jonathan Pritchard probably got that in my head like 7 or 8 years ago. It was another friend of mine. Lovely human being. But it's about what they want, which as a salesperson, I imagine these people are really good at on the phone to say these things, but maybe they haven't written that down, right? It's almost like taking all the possibilities you could have on a sales call, maybe reformatting them in a way that somebody can read before they talk to you. The same way that, like, even before we did this interview, you gave me a very good recipe of like, here's what to expect with the show. And I had a lot less to guess and a lot less time that we had to go over all of these things. The same concept works with how you're going to do your LinkedIn or your marketing, or even one thing I teach all my clients. I have a video series where I give people a really good mindset shift of how to think about their marketing, no matter what industry you're in. And I always say the easiest way you can do it is just brain dump all the FAQs that you get on a regular basis. Now, ideally, your company's got a great website and a great marketing team that's already done this, but maybe you have specific questions for the kinds of clients you get. The easier you can write those all down and make it accessible to someone you want to prospect with, the better.
I love that. And I'm going to let people behind the scenes a little bit on this one, since you've already shared and opened it up. But I think being a guest on a podcast like this one is very similar to trying to get a sales appointment, because you do outreach to people. You researched me. You had frequently asked questions from podcast hosts that you shared ahead of time and on your website. I even saw you shared on LinkedIn today. You
did.
confirmed the appointment to me to make sure that we weren't going to get ghosted or show up to an appointment on your calendar and not have anybody there. You have also like done the pre-call research and other kind of work that salespeople should be doing. If they're going to have a call with somebody, they need to go on LinkedIn and look up that person's info. So I think way too many people are focused on what they're posting and what their profile looks like. They're not paying attention to what the buyer's profile looks like and what the buyer has shared on their website and stuff. Can you take us a little bit through your behavior? What are your sort of action items when you're looking to book a show or talk to a client or research any meeting on your calendar as far as social media goes?
Ooh, this is interesting. I'm just look, the thesis of what I feel like is efficiency, is making sure that like you said, the time that I'm getting on a call to do a show, that the person's actually going to be there and that they've done their homework, right? So even in my world, right, I teach people how to do social media for either their business or even they're somebody who works at a business or works doing something else, help them get their mind clear. And so for me, if they can't watch I have a very light 25-minute training that'll change their life. If they're not somebody who can watch that, learn from it, and come back to me and say, hey, I get a lot more now, like that I've helped them in some way. Like if they can't do that one thing, how well can I hope that they're going to be a really amazing client for me when I do get on the phone with them? So I know some people are probably very biz dev who are looking at this. I'm very much focused on the inbound, right? I show up, a gaggle of people see me, and my lovely random unicorns are going to be like, Shaily is my human. And they will know, like, somebody's listening to this and they're like, you're my person. And I want those people to be able to understand without me even being there that I am their person, get all their questions answered on my FAQ, like we said on my website. Maybe they looked at my LinkedIn profile. Love me some LinkedIn. But that's also the magic, right? Is that they don't have to guess that they can trust me, is that all that's happening offline. And it's a lot of, I think one thing I heard on another episode with yours is that it's really bridging the skills that you have already, right? These people that are listening, they know sales. Look, I don't pretend to be the queen of sales. I respect salespeople more than anything. They're geniuses. So many people are so scared to touch it. But there's so much skill that they have maybe on the phone that is so brilliant. And it's taking that same heart and logic and human kindness and adapting it to the tools of the web so that you can stay top of mind with all of your prospects, whether they're ready to hire you today or in 6 months.
Yeah, I love that. I think listening is one of the biggest skills that salespeople use and people don't use on social media. There's a billion people trying to shout and get attention, and there's very few people actually listening on social media. That's great. I'd add a couple of things into your behaviors that I appreciated. One is you sent me a Dropbox or a Google Drive of like, your headshot pictures we can use, the bio, all the stuff that I need to make you look like a great guest and be prepared for the interview, questions to ask and things. I think salespeople could do very similar things. They can say like, hey, just so we don't waste our time on the call, here's the common things that I get from people all the time. Review these so that we can ask better questions. I don't need to teach you stuff that's already on our website, right? We can shortcut those conversations and speed them along. And I love that you said you give them a little bit of homework too. I think we see how professional you are, the way you present yourself. And some people think social media is about being unprofessional and silly or attracting attention, and we got to go do a TikTok dance. For me, it's more about like being more of yourself and showing how professional you are so that you have credibility when you go to make that call. And there's a lot to that.
Yes, it is credibility, but it's also like you get to force a conversation. Like I'm talking to you one-on-one. Nobody could have watched this because this could have been a phone call, right? But now we get to have this conversation that is scalable, that more than one person can see. And I don't have to be there one-on-one with 50 people that I might be prospecting for them to get this. And, you know, every week when I post something, and I've been posting consistently on LinkedIn for like, I don't know, maybe 4 years, 5 years. Like, I know people have gotten to know me really, really well that I probably don't even realize know me super well. They've seen all my posts about crazy stuff that has to do with my heritage, or, you know, things that were really challenging for me. My little rant today about podcasting tips. Like, there's a lot that they get to know of me. And so when they are ready, that lets them raise their hand. And I think my guess is that a lot of your listeners have a bucket of humans that they know they want to prospect, right? And maybe I DM them today, right? Hopefully they have a good follow-up sequence and they check in with them on a regular basis. But if they don't have like maybe email marketing, or even if they're not connected with them on LinkedIn, that's a missed opportunity to pop up in front of their face. Now, if you post a TikTok dance, I don't care. I think there's so many companies that are just like, I'm going to follow the trend, but they don't actually teach you anything about what you solve for people. That's the missed moment. So every single person listening to this could, again, brain dump everything. And next level is take some of that content and say, hey, when I'm talking to people in this field that I sell to, here's a really big problem that will address XYZ issue. And then you write it out. And that post on LinkedIn is significantly more valuable than you trying to like one-on-one DM people, because they're not remembering the value. But on LinkedIn, they can remember the value on a regular, consistent basis. So they can raise their hand when they're ready. Or it could be a text message. It could be email marketing. It could be maybe postcards. It could be you got sent a sticker I saw recently. So something that goes out regularly so they can raise their hand. That will be a great way to get more inbound and more timely things for when people are really ready to sign on.
Talk to me about what your regular kind of weekly or daily or monthly cadence is for you on what you're posting, what you're doing, or how you would recommend salespeople do it. I mean, I think there's probably some boundaries that come to mind for me. I've kind of found that the old Twitter days of like doing like 7 to 10 posts a day are kind of gone. We kind of want to maximize and get bigger reach for other stuff. But I don't know. I feel like there is too little and too much, but there's also a wide variety in between of it depends on how valuable each post is. If you do 7 crappy ones, it's not worth one good one. But if you do 7 good ones, it might be worth more than 7 times the one. I don't know, what's your take?
What?
Yeah. I want to know what your take is. What does it look like a day or a week in the life of Shaily, and how much are you posting, or how much are you spending time are you spending researching other people on social media?
Oof. Well, I'm not doing as much research, but there are a lot of research things you can do. So we can talk about that at some point. But the biggest thing I'll say is I'm going to hit it. There's probably some perfectionists who are listening to this. And, you know, and I'm probably a recovering perfectionist. I remember when I used to start writing content. So I'm trying to get in the headspace of like someone who's maybe a little newer to this. I was like, oh, this post isn't good enough. This sucks. Or, I don't like this. But sometimes posts that I think are kind of meh, like do really well. And sometimes posts that I like try really hard on don't do so well. And that's okay. Somebody's still going to read it. I'm like, I'm not worried about it. But the magic comes in that like, if you start posting stuff today, if you post every week or every 2 weeks, in a year, there's like 100% guarantee that your content's going to be better. So it's part of it is like, you got to try and adjust and just see what happens. The second part of it is, because I used to over perfect. I spend like 13 hours on one post. Now I try to spend 15 minutes and try to be done if I can. I also have a VA, so that's also helpful that she does some of it.
There you go. That's good.
It's great. I don't think anybody who listening has to have one, but it helps. I also write down content ideas whenever they come. So sometimes I'll be like weird one when I'm in my car. I get really great ideas. So I'll try to click the button. I have a quick button that goes directly to my collection on Notion of all my content ideas, and I put it in there. And eventually my VA might turn it into something. So I don't have to think very hard. The other thing I'll say, this is a really, really big one. I think this will take off a lot of the stress. I think some people think, oh my gosh, I'm going to start this thing. It's going to be a big project. And like social media is an effort. There's a lot of choices you can make in terms of where you want to put your marketing. But the thing is, like, yes, maybe 10 tweets a day will help you become something, and like 3 TikToks a day will help you become a TikToker, but most people don't have the capacity for that. And if you don't love that medium, you're going to hate it and you're going to quit just like a bad diet. So you got to find the right amount that you can maintain consistently. You want to at least batch a bunch so you don't screw it up. I had a client, I was like, let's get 2 months ahead, because you're going to screw this up if we don't get you ahead. And then you're going to be overwhelmed. You're like, I need to post this week. What do I do? Batch and then post consistently, because I always use this example. Like, if your favorite TV show ended mid-season, they're like, oh, we got busy. Like, oh, we couldn't make the episode. Like, wouldn't you be sad that you couldn't get the rest of the show seen? I would be devastated. So don't end your show mid-season. But consistency doesn't have to be every day. Doesn't have to be 10 times on Twitter. Doesn't have to be 10 times on TikTok. It could be, for me, it started with once a month. That was a lot for me. And I pulled it off on LinkedIn. And then I slowly got to every other week. And now I'm at every week. Some people will say you have to do a lot more than that. I'm like, you know what? But I'm not going to stick with it. And that's how I can keep people thinking about me all year round. So when the right problems pop up, they're like, oh yeah, you should talk to yoursocialmediasherpa.com. She's going to help you.
Love it. Okay, now we're at our third bucket, which is the technique bucket. And you mentioned VAs, which is having somebody else do it is a great technique. And we're also living in a world now with AI and things that will write posts for you. So this is a big question, but do you have any tips, tools, hacks, techniques? What tools do you use? Which ones would you recommend people stay away from? That kind of thing.
I would stay away from any tool that you think is going to do it all for you and that you're done, because that's no fun. I've used ChatGPT for some things. Here's the other secret. I also hate writing. And you saw my post today was all written. And I'm like, thank you, VA, for being a great writer. But I think she even uses some tools because she's okay with editing it and making sure it still sounds like you, because it's very easy to sound robotic and generic. It's also really good for, I think, like ChatGPT is really good for coming up with ideas of tell me more about this demographic, or tell me more about what have I used it for recently? Give me icebreaker questions that will help 6-figure consultants. I have a lot of clients in that demographic through one of my clients. And so I'm like, give me some icebreaker topics, give me some things that you could ask people. And so it'll give you lots of good ideas. So I am not allergic to AI. I think you have to know how to use it. I don't think it's going to replace social media people, but I think it can help you come up with ideas, right? Like, I had a client and she was like, I don't know what graphics I could use. Let's brainstorm. Yeah.
Sorry, no, I love it for brainstorming. And I don't want to move on, but I want to talk about some of the ones you do use, because I've kind of found less success with social media scheduling tools. I think the algorithms have kind of adjusted. They know that you're not there and you're not spending time on LinkedIn or Facebook. So they're not going to reward you for not logging into their site and stuff.
True.
But are there any tools that you love, or what do you feel like is the most valuable techniques to use?
Oh, definitely scheduling within the platform. They want native content. So LinkedIn came out with a scheduler and I'm geeking over it. It's made my life and my brain and my stress level reduced, because I would not use an external schedule because they do ding you for it. Now, the other thing is, I want to just assure your audience that you can overthink the algorithm all day long and say, oh, I got to post it this hour and this minute. It helps, but that's not the thing to focus on. It's to focus on, am I providing a nugget the people that I'm connected with can know? Because the secret sauce is if your 200 people, 2,000 people on LinkedIn are your right demographic, the algorithm doesn't matter, because some subset of those people will see your content and they'll never tell you that they're maybe obsessed with you till maybe they need you. And that's also very hard to just believe, but know that that's possible. If you can get the right bucket of people to the right bucket of information, that's where your goal is.
All right. If you could change one thing about the way people use social media, what would it be? If you can either do stop doing, or a more likely would be a start doing. If you could get every salesperson out there to start doing one thing, what would you pick?
This is a really tangible tactic. Very simple. Just think of every I'll give you this example. I watched David Muir, who does the news on TV, and my mom watches it every night. And the first 5 minutes is here's what's coming up on the show, and it hooks you, and you're like, I want to know what's going on with the writer's strike. I want to know what's going on with the flooding. And just like that, every TV show, every radio show, you've used to do, make sure. Oh, we have a visitor today. We have a hook. You have to have a very good hook. This is my step kitty Pearl, so I told her she's gonna be famous today, so please, Mike, make her a celebrity. you have to make sure it's hooky. And I think a lot of people were just like put really weird blurbs for their first few lines of their headline on LinkedIn, their bio on LinkedIn, their posts on LinkedIn. Maybe if they're sending a text or an email, make sure whatever you're doing tells somebody what's in it for me immediately. That's a very simple thing to do. The other thing that comes up, and I think I see this a lot with like my clients who happen to be women, is like, how do I say this without sounding like an asshole and sounding like a jerk? And like, oh, I don't want to sound like I'm just like self-promoting. And I'm like, well, just say it like a real person and address what you're thinking is, what you're thinking the reality is of the person who's reviewing it. That's something that is just like, just say the thing. And you're allowed to just say the thing. Be your real self. It's you in a room full of however many people are following you, just saying your truth. And that's it. It's nothing more than that.
You know what I tell people on that one? Because I get this from like public speaking and other things too, is like, if you're worried about being too pushy, you're not too pushy. You need to be more aggressive. The people that are too pushy are the ones that don't even have that filter. They don't have an off button. They aren't worried about it at all. They're just blowing stop signs. So like, if you're even sensitive to that, you know that you're going to be sensitive and you need to go the other direction. Awesome. Great tips today. Again, it's Shaily Hakimian. You can find her at yoursocialmediasherpa.com. Shaily, I want to get to know you a little bit better here. So at this point in your career, how do you define success? Not necessarily just with social media, but what does success, fulfillment, happiness look like in your career?
This is like a cheesy one, but like, I feel like us millennials have invented like time richness as opposed to like dollar richness. And that to me, I think is so cool that I want, I wish my dad could have learned that sooner because he's just working his booty off 24/7. So I think that's something that is really a nice thing of success, is that like, if something comes up and I need to change my schedule, I have some flexibility built in. Or if I need to take a sick day, like, my boss is pretty nice. It's me. So so I think that's kind of cool, is having autonomy to really make sure that I'm serving the clients in the way that I serve them best, but also how they learn best too. So I think for me, just that's success, but also success is when my clients, like, this happens with every client. They're like, every single one will say like, I'm the worst at social media. I'm going to be the worst person you've ever had. And they're never that. And then when they get to the point where they're, I always say like, being empowered to do your own marketing, like that's something I say all the time. And to the point where they're coming up with ideas and they're coming up with stuff, from the point where they were like, oh, I'm paralyzed, to like, they can do this themselves and they're excited by it. And they come up with things that I never could have imagined in their wildest dreams, because I've put them in a position to think differently in a way that embraces who they are. Like, I just love seeing them feel that way. That makes me just melt. So that for me is success.
Now, on the flip side, was there a biggest failure you're most proud of, or a lesson learned that you had to get over in order to be successful?
Well, I never made money off of this thing, but when I was right out of college, I was 22 years old. I didn't know how to get a career going. I made door hangers for a conference that said, "Hi, I'm Shaily. I'm an activist, I'm a teacher, and I'm your friend for hire 2023." And I put my phone number on it. And I put some funny quotes on both sides. I did not get a single piece of business from it, but it was really fun and memorable. And I think for me, that taught me a lot. Like, yes, I probably spent more money than I could have afforded back then on these stupid door hangers, but like, I tried. So I think even just trying and messing up is probably one of the best teachers. I'm sure I've done way worse than that too.
No, that's all right. I think that's the lesson, though, and I talk about this so much with what I do with public speaking or podcasting and stuff. Is the only way to get good at it is to be bad at it first, and the only way to find what works is to try something, to take any action. You can't.
Let me tell you this. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. You give me nuggets, and I'm like, I know you had another good question coming. I used to do stand-up comedy open mics to better my public speaking, because if I can survive that torture, I can do anything. So
I love that. I got to do that too. That's one of the things on my bucket list.
Highly recommend.
Okay. What about for you? What's the next goal for you?
So here's the sidebar. I don't know what's going to happen. I have a very unadvertised, unoverly promoted podcast called Business or Baby. So deciding, can I have a business and have a child? I don't know. TBD. And I've been asking people lots of questions about it. So I feel like that's a topic that I think will come up in the next coming years. My partner and I figure out what we want to do with our relationship. And I think that's going to be really interesting is, can I keep the business doing what it needs to do for my life while also giving me the flexibility to make these big life decisions without hurting either one? I think that's something that's on my radar, is that if I've built this business to be able to like sustain that, that's huge. And I think very uncommon. So I don't know if that's going to be possible. I heard it's very hard to have children. So TBD.
I don't have any kids, so I don't have a comment there, but having a business and a kid both seem like tough things to me, and certainly doable at the same time. People have done it. People way dumber than you have had businesses and babies at the same time. That's the way I always think about it.
So who knows? But I like what I do, and I like that I don't want to have more than, I only really look for the right fit clients. I don't need, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't need more than that a year. I really love that I get to find the right people, and I want those people to know that I'm here and that we can figure this out together. I don't need an army of folks. So I think just continuing to look for my people, I think it's just, and just keep growing that as I've been, like, this is great. I don't need to do anything crazy or dramatic. Just keep doing my thing.
Last one. Do you have a favorite quote, motto, or mantra you try to remember?
So my favorite quote that I wish I had written myself is that social media is about the people, not about your business. Provide for the people, and the people will provide for you.
Lovely. Again, her website is yoursocialmediasherpa.com. Go say hi to Shaily over there if you feel like she is one of your people. Shaily, thank you so much for being on the podcast. As always, you can subscribe, listen to this podcast on YouTube or on your favorite podcast. My worldwide leader in sales and customer service training with over 200 locations. For more information on Sandler, you can go to sandler.com, click on find a training location, reach out to a local office. Or if you have more than one location, we have an enterprise team there as well. So click on the enterprise tab there and get connected to our national team. All right. Anything else? Whatever you are, be a good one. That's what I always say. Thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye, everybody.